Item number B is to consider the soil erosion fee options presented by the prosecuting attorney. This came to this committee today with no recommendation from the Finance and Administration Committee. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to the prosecutor and if you'd like to give a presentation.
Okay. First of all, I provided you with a packet. This is by no means anything that's in any way complete. I have a number of files on this, number of books. And I provided you with a portion of the police report, some of the records. I have a lot of information. Any one of the commissioners wants to review any of that, please feel. We've referenced the Attorney General's letter. It's not the Attorney General, Assistant Attorney General. And we know that case was at the Attorney General's office for many months. More than one Assistant Attorney General looked at that. I'm convinced that not everybody's had the view that Mr. Tanai had regarding this. And you have to understand, in effect, when Mr. Tanai is sending that letter, he's supporting the Attorney General's decision or his office's decision. He didn't give a lot of facts in it. He talked about conclusions and he talked about the idea of mistake being a defense to embezzlement by a public official. I don't agree with that analysis. If by mistake, if you're talking about, if you know it's public money, then that's not a mistake. I mean, if you know you're taking it from county funds, then that's not the kind of mistake we're talking about. If in fact it was paid off entirely inadvertently, that would be something. That's all beyond the point. I provided you with a copy of, again, a portion of the police report. I have a copy of reports and documents relating to this unemployment issue. And again, the Attorney General in the letter didn't really reference any of the factual scenario, anything the investigation disclosed. In the unemployment situation, what came out in the investigation is that on the last day that Todd Holzhausen worked, the only person that was there said I quit, stormed out of the office, and never returned. It's undisputed that in fact he left the office one day, never returned. Todd Holzhausen indicates that he didn't say I quit, he said I'm done. And as we know, initially his unemployment claim was denied. After that happened, Mr. Holzhausen informed the county clerk he left for lack of work. So again, I have a report here and other reports upstairs that people want to look at. We're not here today about the criminal issue. The Attorney General Attorney General's office made the decision on the criminal issue. I made my decision relating to Bernie Bush. I dismissed the charges. So we're not here about that. The criminal issue is done. What we're here about is for the board to decide what you're going to do about these soil erosion fees that Bernard Butcher, Gary Holzhausen vouchered from this account. One thing, the Attorney General's, Mr. Tanai and I agree on, and the auditors indicate, and all the records of the county clerk, and I have all the minutes, I didn't include them in the packet, there was never authorization for the drain commissioner to personally receive these fees. Everybody's in agreement on that, perhaps with the exception of those two individuals. So the county has the right to seek reimbursement from these individuals. Now we're talking about, this practice didn't start until Mr. Butcher became drain commissioner. his account in here indicates that he thought he had that authorization, but he couldn't provide any documentation for it. When I heard that the drain commissioner was receiving these, I went to the county clerk and I said, let me see the file on this, let me see the minutes where it's been approved. And within a relatively short span of time, they were able to tell me that it was never approved. So, we're talking about, in my opinion, a 6-year statute of limitations on this. So there's some money that Mr. Butcher received years ago that if the commissioners were to sue him, they wouldn't be able to recover that because the statute of limitations would be. In Mr. Butcher's case, we're talking about, that's at page, there's a printout with year-by-year breakdowns on this at page 15 and 16 of that material I provided here. So in essence, we're talking about 6 years back from now. So 2001 sometime on. So we're talking about maybe close to $15,000. And on page 2 or on page 16 there, when you look under Mr. Butcher, Bernard Butcher, under the $3,169.60, it says 2004 there. Under that, it should be actually 2005. And those, as my understanding, are fees that Mr. Butcher received in effect on a contract basis after Mr. Holzhausen took office. In other words, he continued to do them at Mr. Holzhausen's request and was reimbursed accordingly. Now, Mr. Butcher, from the start, he took the whole fee, whatever it might have been. And again, the program went through several changes over the years, and the fee structure went through some changes, but Mr. Butcher took the fee. There's no indication in this investigation that anyone ever told him that was improper. We simply don't have that information, one way or the other. Now, Mr. Holzhausen, when he took office, initially, he took $15 of the fee, whatever it might have been, then he increased that to $8. And the one thing that he did, as the considerable talk about, he began to charge for wages. And again, in the Attorney General's letter, he indicates about actions of the drain commissioners being ultra-virus without authority. Although the Attorney General is not indicating in his letter that the drain commissioner had the authority to start charging this fee, which happened. It was $5,999. $509,994 that Gary Holzhausen vouchered out of his fund.